I think I saw that when I was visiting college campuses and I was taking this was display that Students for Life used to have. They have modified that because things are changing.
Yeah.
But it used to be called Defund Planned Parenthood. And we would take it over to college campuses. And I remember one time being in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and taken to one of the colleges, and people were looking at the statistics and like, wow, I can't believe Planned Parenthood actually aborts that many children
Yeah.
a day.
Didn't believe that.
You know,
Well, how many do they have?
it's about more than 500, children a day.
Yeah.
It's intense. But what got to me was a particular person who, after going over the display, came over to me and she said to me, I feel terrible right now. I'm hurt. And I'm like, okay, so what's going on? I think this is terrible, this whole display. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And she continues to talk to me, and I find out that she was raped.
Mm.
And so, what a pro life activist at that moment should do is stop your whole pro life crusade and listen to that person and her testimony, right? And first, she tells me, one, I hate men. So I knew that I was already,
A
in a
shaky
bad
ground.
position,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, okay, she hates men. She had this bad experience. What can I do? So I immediately went and I went to my coworker who was a female who in her family also faced sexual assault. And she was able to share with her own testimony. And after that happened, we advised her to, one, go to police enforcement in the campus so that she can find help to report it, and second, to go to a counselor. Of course, if a person is religious, we want them to go to spiritual direction, but we have to meet people where they were. And at that moment, knowing that this person was raped, we have a duty to also respect the dignity of that person at that
Mm.
moment. And so
Mm.
that's what we have to be very careful in the pro-life movement, that we don't point fingers, because we never
Absolutely.
know
Yeah.
where a person has been or where their past has been. And I can tell you that it wasn't the first time that I've heard it. I've been to other college campuses where rape came again. And people had the confidence enough in us pro life individuals, because they see us out there with a lot of compassion and giving them hope, that they want to share their testimony. And that's beautiful when they're able to do that, because then they're able to become free from their own mistakes.
Can we speak to the listeners on this now and the viewers? Because even with the issue of rape or incest, what we have discovered through surveys, through numbers, through speaking to people in the prisons and who are in the drug rehabs and all of that, when a person is raped, when a woman is raped and she conceives, it's still a baby and it's not the baby's fault. And she kind of somewhere knows that, but the thought of carrying the child of her oppressor, her attacker, is very difficult. So she needs a particular type of care because biologically, abortion hurts women's bodies. So, regardless of how she became pregnant, the abortion will kill the baby, very likely,
Mm.
and then harm the mother, if not kill the mother. And so she's going to open herself up to more violence. She's been violated. And then you go into her body and violate it further because you have to interrupt the natural healing biological
Hmm.
process.
Mm.
So she can come out with cervical cancer, breast cancer on top of the rape with the abortion.
Mm.
So we explain that. And then if she absolutely is going to have difficulty through the pregnancy, you help her all the way through with ministry counsel, try to find the perpetrator. That's very
Mm.
important. And then at the end of the process, when the child is born, the baby can actually be adopted. What we have found with incest and also with sexual abuse and sex trafficking, the perpetrators of the acts against the girls and the women will drag them to the abortion clinic,
Mm.
force them. Clinics like Planned Parenthood, especially, have been trained to not ask questions so they don't have to report it. So the perpetrator can do this over and over.
Mm.
Get the woman pregnant or the girl pregnant and then drag her back and have the abortion and keep doing it.
Mm.
And so, even in cases of rape and incest, which is a very horrible violation, we find that through healing, it can interrupt that process of repeated abuse. It can help to identify because the baby is a human being that's also evidence of what happened to the mother. So a lot of people don't know that. So in questions of with rape and incest, should there be an exception? Even when they ask, should there be an exception for health of the mother? And Senator-elect Daphne
Kimmel, yeah.
has a beautiful testimony about that because she was advised because of a serious health matter to abort her child. She wouldn't do it. And as soon as the child was ready for birth, the health problem went away.
Yeah.
And so sometimes science is so brilliant now that there's less than 1% of a mother's life being endangered with a pregnancy, less than 1%. And most of the time, the pregnancy can continue long enough for that little premature baby to be able to live outside the mother and the mother still live. But people don't know that. So a lot of times that's used to scare women into an abortion situation. A lot of people don't know that.
I think it's really important along those lines to talk about a reason for wanting or considering an abortion is not the same thing as an excuse for having one.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about that with compassion and saying, I'm understanding that these are the reasons you're at this place, but there's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
And to have our own pregnancy crisis centers, which I know we do, but to really support them, encourage them, walk through with them, donate to them, espouse them, direct people that way, making sure we're doing that because you need to provide an alternative.
Yeah.
Because if there's a crisis and they don't know how they're going to get through, this is how I know we can walk through. So while you're still out there, because you're still fighting the good fight to save those babies' lives, well, if you've convinced this person, now what do they do now? Where do they go? What if they don't have a support system? They're not part of a local church, not part of a family. If we can continue to support and encourage and financially, spiritually, in every way, these pregnancy crisis centers that are coming up now. We've got one here.
Wow.
Actually, the doctor there now used to be a Planned Parenthood doctor. Wow. And they have taken over the Planned Parenthood clinic where she used to perform abortions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Heartbeat of Miami.
Heartbeat of
Oh my
Miami.
God.
They're doing a great work.
That's
Great
powerful.
work.
That's powerful.
And so they walk through the whole process, and not till the baby's delivered. They continue with the mother on through, and with every aspect of life. And so if we can do that, start by saying the reason for wanting an abortion is not an excuse to